Hello, and and I don't know. I guess very first again I have to say how that the how uncomfortable the feeling is to comment on all the giant events of the world, and and um, and then of course knowing the suffering that other people are going through for humanity. Uh, to comment on 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 these things from really the relative comfort of my personal life. I am I do feel some guilt over that. Uh, but as I guess I also point out later on, of course, none of this is my fault. I have not voted for any of this, and if I would be from another country, I would not have voted for any of the things. There's no person in position of power in Great Britain or Germany or the United States that I would have ever voted for. So while I am ashamed to be in relative comfort in these horrible times are not my fault. Um, but after noting the fact that I do have that nagging guilt at the back of my head, I first do want to say a couple of things again from the progressive, you know, circles, that I also get to watch and listen to. Well, firstly, I guess I'll actually first I'll make a philosophical point, and this, of course, again, this comes from the position that the situation of the world would never ever be anything like it is. If it was up to me, we would be in the originally Roddenberry Star Trek kind of a world without the some of the old-fashioned things of the 60s, like obvious racism, that just could not be helped. I mean, they were as unracist as they possibly could have been. But anyway, the kind of a world that Gene Roddenberry more or less imagined, if it was up to me, we'd be there by now. With perhaps even man changing a little bit more. Anyway. Again, but under these circumstances, these absolutely terrible, dreadful circumstances, which I'm so sorry we have, and again, I have no part in. I haven't done anything to bring them about. One has to point out the philosophical point that, of course, after you cannot, and again, after you cannot have a more reasonable world where they would have voted for, in the United States, they would have voted for everybody from was it McCarthy, the guy in the early 70s, which the case again, because of course then you have the other, Joe McCarthy. You also have the other McCarthy from earlier on. So one tries to be careful, but I think it was McCarthy was the guy who, because he was doing too well, and that's why they have the superdelegates on the Democratic side in the States. So you cannot have any sort of a democracy in the Democratic Party. But anyone from if it was McCarthy, but anyway, that guy, to anyone, Jesse Jackson, all the way to Bernie Sanders, and then of course after you can't have Sanders, of course Dr. Jill Stein, obviously Jill Stein, but since you cannot make or you have not been able to make the United Statesians to be smart enough to vote, for at least half-way decent candidate for president, under these catastrophic circumstances, philosophically, one has to say that Donnie Loofface Drumpf was the right choice. What? I mean, since you... and this is what some people were saying beforehand. Very few, but still there were some. If you have a complete disaster and you absolutely effing well have to wake people up in the Western world, and especially in the United States, most importantly in the United States, okay, well, this lunatic is the way to do it. I have no idea whether it's going to work, but I mean, it would have been absolutely dreadful. I can't, there's no way that I don't know even how to call it, arch puppet non-government of Kamala Harris. I hope I've told everyone that Kamala is actually the Finnish word for terrible. It really is. The absolutely horrific non-government that would have been the Kamala Harris government. I mean, and then you would still have had that veneer, totally useless veneer of some sort of civility while doing barbaric things. I mean, that would have been, in my mind, in the disaster where we are, that would have been even more disastrous. But again, now we have to see whether the United States, the people of the United States actually finally wake the F up. But many things, again, and things that have been brought on by Drumpf, by no one else, have made many people mad, have made many people think in the United States, think about things that they haven't thought about before. And of course, you have to hope that this anger will show up in future elections. That the United States, unlike everybody else in the Western world, have learned a small lesson about lying. That unsophisticated lying is just as much lying as sophisticated lying is. And they will not trust anyone. They will want proof, actual proof, from any nominee for any position. And they are ready to hold these people accountable. At every point. Again, it may be that even the absolute shocked treatment that the Donny Looferface Trump government, second administration has been, will not teach them a bloody thing. But there are some careful, hopeful signs. And truly it is, together, of course, with the possible collapse of the petrodollar and NATO, it is the best hope we have, actually, that the United States will, and they have so much, smartening up to do. It's terrible, because people, from more educated countries with a lot more opportunity for knowledge, even, people like myself, are continuously surprised by, for example, the advancement of China. I just saw an absolutely wonderful YouTube video from a poor Chinese person, where she was telling what to do if you're poor. And that is galaxies, several galaxies ahead of the United States. But of course, by now, over a galaxy ahead for something, of a Nordic, which once was a Nordic welfare state. Again, when I was born, we had everything as well as it could have possibly have been, and we've slid backwards like no one's business. And of course, the United States wasn't doing great then, and what did 40% live in absolute poverty or something? And none of us can actually, I could not dream of the kind of things they have in China. The distance from this oligarchic neoliberal dystopia that we have in the Western world, the distance from this modern hell that we are in to something even remotely socially democratic, again, what we had in the Nordic countries 40 years ago, not to mention something like it, something socialist taken further like they have in China. The distance is absolutely shocking. But again, we have to start somewhere. And since we are all vassals of the United States, or slaves to be more exact, we need it to start there. And certainly, Trump is shock treatment. I know it's terrible, and it's not my fault. As I've said, not my fault. But yeah, the under the circumstances, this was the better option. It's horrible to say, considering all the people suffering and dying, but they have been suffering and dying through, every president, at least since of the United States, since Kennedy. And then, I don't know, there are a lot of good people who say good things about Kennedy. I personally, I would have loved they wouldn't have cheated vice presidency away from Wallace before, again, but I would say the same people again cheating the vice presidency away from Wallace before FDR died. To me, that's to me that's the perhaps the most catastrophic political happening in the United States and in the at least the Western world in general. But so I know horrible. It's horrible. I'm mortified about it, but I think this disaster was better than any other disaster. And then the second, again, and it's so funny. This is like it's like some sort of small socializing coffee table discussion, while other people are again suffering and dying for all the reasonable people in the world. But we are where we are, and one has to then, in these circumstances, I need to comment on this discussion that pretty much has gone out of control again in these mostly progressive, but perhaps even libertarian and sometimes conservative circles, in the new media, podcast sphere, and then of course this my own little world of YouTube and overall non-traditional commentariat, which is about, is Israel controlling the United States or the United States controlling Israel? Which one of these two countries is the boss, so to speak? And again, most people and the evidence very much, the nearby evidence very much says, and individual happenings very much say that it is Israel. But then you have some very, very good people, very smart people saying that it's the United States. For example, Brian Berletic and who was the other one? It wasn't a long time ago. Oh, Finkelstein, of course. Norman Finkelstein. So I mean, and it's very strange, and it seems perhaps again things that really doesn't matter, that some people in the right are using this to bash the left again, and in a sense, in a way correctly, because the greatest problem of the left in the Western world is that it can never stop infighting. Never. It is incapable. But again, this is again being one of these idiotic things. This has become one of these idiotic things. Which one of these two countries is to blame for everything or most of the things? Which one of them is the leader? And to this, I have to say, as my personal opinion, again, as an ordinary person, not an expert, not a journalist, not a scientist, just an ordinary onlooker, I have to say, this is very important. They are both right from my point of view. Again, this is a non-argument. Everybody should stop. Again, the left should stop fighting about this. It's a non-issue. If I would have to make my own, in a sense, commentary about it, I'm pretty sure that the creation, of course, Israel was a creation of very powerful people in Britain and in the United States. And whatever the plan originally, how far it was thought, for example, as an extra state or an aircraft carrier, I think it totally took over. I have no idea whether it was meant to have so much influence originally. But now it certainly has, and it is ridiculous to try to say that no, if every congressman has their own APAC person, and it's the only country that has to register as a foreign, for any lobby group doesn't have to register as a foreign lobby group, and again, enormous amount of dual citizenships and. Obviously, it is a project that has taken over the company building it. But most likely, it is something that the deep state has encouraged, and same people are in the deep state and are in the United States and Israeli deep state, and you have war maniacs and of course then just suicidal religious nutters in both elites and in both both departments of the deep state, and again, whoever is in the White House or whatever is the present administration makes very little difference. Of course, now we have pretty good evidence, not proof, but evidence that, of course, this particular president was now very much arranged to be there so that this latest war could happen. That he was the only one who was that compromised. But anyway, the power lies in the deep state. For example, the power to actually arrange, all the stuff that brought the present lunatic into the White House, and it's the same. It's the same people, or most of the same people, and their interests are the same. So the question of which one is leading doesn't really matter. You can say that the United States deep state and all the whatever it then includes, 3-letter agencies, NGOs, all of it, the media. All of it is, of course, the more dominant one. So if you want to say it, it's like, the leader in the United States, or, the government, the actual administration makes very little difference. But if you want to, so if you want to say it, it's like, let's see, I have to see his real name. It's Bibi Milejkovsky. Milejkovsky is Donald Trump's boss, no question about it. You can, again, it's a wonderful picture of Donald Trump actually, holding his chair for him. But the deep state, the U.S. deep state, is the boss of Bibi Milejkovsky. So, in a sense, both are in charge. Israel controls, U.S. administration, and the U.S. deep state tells Israel what to do. So again, everybody's right. Again, this is my opinion. I say everybody's right. So please stop fighting. again, over nothing. The end result is the same disaster. On that, I'm very happy. What an unfortunate choice of words. Let's say happy under the circumstances to hear that just Israel launching nukes is not going to destroy the world. I really thought it would, and I think it's still possible. I still think it is terrifying. I still think it keeps me up at night. But that you know, somebody like Professor Postel says that Iran can have, you know, its own nukes in a very short time and pretty much obliterate with them. What was news to me. So again, it may not be a... Again, happy is not perhaps the correct word, but it is in the midst of this absolute catastrophe. I guess it's a ray of hope that the end of the world perhaps doesn't come with the first nukes. I don't know. Perhaps one should have just kept quiet. Again, I'll say it again. I am so unbelievably sorry for all the pain, all the suffering, all the death. Totally useless death and suffering going on. I am just talking philosophically. And I am sorry. I am sorry about the reality. And again, I thank the Russians and the Iranians for what they have done for all of us. Anyway, then to my I think to my actual rant subject, the reason why I had to do this particular video too, even though I have difficulties finding the energy, and it is international law. I would say law in general. Let's say I have never quite agreed with the law as I have known it. Again, I have been pretty much raised by old Anglo-American films and books, actually, and then I've lived in Finland. In Finland we don't have the jury system, and I do have to say that I cannot find, and it is very interesting because in Finland the court system is actually called the justice system, and all courts are actually called justice. The word oikeus, which is the Finnish word for you know, for your courtroom, for your local court, the same word means justice, an actual, you know, whatever. If you have a you know, human rights, so anyway, so in Finland the word law is less used. It is totally used. You go to law school, for example, in Finland, but you don't have a but you have lots of justice. The word justice used in other languages as well, and in English as well. You know, you have a Department of Justice, and so does it do justice? Anyway, for example, in Finland, I cannot say that I had ever seen justice happen. Again, Finnish people have always been absolutely outstanding in red tape and bureaucracy and rules and regulations. So of course, if you have something that is completely clear, that doesn't need any moral judgments, then the Finnish justice system works. But if you actually need something that actually has something to do with what is right and correct and justice, when you actually need justice, I haven't witnessed the Finnish justice system working. Again, whenever you need humanity and creativity, you can be sure that the Finns are not there. And again, the Finnish justice system and the Finnish law should have been created differently, so that these bureaucrats and these, again, unempathic pencil pushers that Finns are could actually mete out justice. Again, this is my experience. Actually, I've had some experience, and again, I have not been like convicted of anything. I haven't been convicted of a crime. I haven't been I haven't had trouble with the law. Interesting, again, just in Finland. But I personally, for example, I have been failed by the law and the justice system. And the closest person to me in my life suffered greatly because of the Finnish justice system and law not working at all. But again, you might say that I don't have, in a sense, I don't have, or let's say that my own cow is not totally in the ditch, but a little bit. I have been treated unfairly by the Finnish justice system. And again, when you've had famous court cases in Finland, whenever there has you would have needed actual creative thinking, actual justice, I've never witnessed it in Finland. So firstly, the Finnish justice system to me is complete crap. But now we get to the justice systems of the rest of the world. And of course, first thing that comes to mind is, of course, Julian Assange. I cannot believe it. It is absolutely unbelievable that, justice did not happen in Sweden, in Britain, in the United States, and in a sense, not even in Australia. Actually, to my mind, an enormous amount of law breaking was done by, so-called servants of the law in all of these countries. So that's collectively, that's already, and you can of course throw in Ecuador after Korea. So that's collectively law not working at all, being just a justice not happening, totally not happening in several countries. Their own, totally against what the officials of that country those countries were doing was against what should have been their own laws. And again, I don't know if there is, and I'll come to this later, I don't know if there is some wiggle room where, again, officers of the law and officials of a government or of a court system can do unjust things. I don't know, I'll come to that later, because I am not a lawyer, like everybody always says. I'll come to that as well later on. But then, of course, the next one actually that comes to mind is, of course, poor Stephen Donziger. And after you hear about that, then you when you look at the United States justice system, you can find things that if they are not illegal, they should be. And corruption, and so on. And of course, the way that the Supreme Court works and how the judges are nominated and confirmed, total crap. And then again, how ordinary, judges in lower courts, how they are. Oh dear. But then you get to again the idea of how much money is thrown into the United States system. Just in a way, giant corporations can actually just do lawfare. I really shouldn't need to tell anyone who happens to see this about this. Exactly how totally ridiculous the United States justice system has become. How totally corrupt and useless it is. So that's the next one. But now we then get to the international law. Where is it? What is it? I guess the first thing that always comes to mind, considering that the two countries that mostly break it, by far the most importantly, the United States, and then Israel, as much as it can, but it's a younger and smaller country. But again, it does give United States a run for its money. I understand that they are not part of any whether it's Statute of Rome or whatever, of any system of international justice. But then, so that's the first one that comes. But then the second one that comes along, again, and this is said by other people, is that the United Nations is supposed to be international law, and that the United States was there to actually create it, and that the United States actually, in the United Nations, wrote most of the international law. And of course, this, I understand, has all to do with the Second World War and all the unbelievable horrors committed by the National Socialists in Germany. Again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a historian, but I've understood that this is the case. So, considering that the greatest breaker of so-called international law is the United States continuously and at every point, it is it's a bit shocking. And then, of course, I understand that the United States is supposed to have its own laws, for example, about, war crimes and double tapping and, and selling weapons to countries that commit genocide and so on, all these things. So, but I guess we've already established that any kind of a law is not working in the United States. Then we get to the European Union, which I have no idea what was. To me, again, the problem is that from my point of view, the European Union is totally the creation of the globalists and mostly the United States. It has absolutely nothing to do with the welfare of European nationals, ordinary Europeans. It's ridiculous. And I said this, before Finland ever went into it, and when I knew very little about it. I said, this is horseshit. But I think I'll link, actually, I'm pretty sure it's Pascal Lotas who has this German, I think he's a journalist, as a guest. I have so many things to watch, I haven't yet watched all of it. But I am pretty sure it is accurate. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't. And one does seem to hear things like that. So that in Europe, they might be having a project going on where the countries themselves actually have some laws to protect people. But the European Union, that is not even an actual, it's just something, as Alexander Mercouris, I think, points out often, it is something brought on by treaties. It is just a creation of treaties and law. It's not an actual entity, so to speak. It's not a country, the European Union. That it actually can trample the human rights of EU citizens. And there's very little anyone can do about it. Because for some reason this horrible entity that for some reason can put on sanctions on people and countries when the international law clearly says, again, and this comes from lawyers, that the only instance that can put on sanctions, the only instance, according to international law, is the UN Security Council. So, of course, all the sanctions that the United States, not to mention Donny Lupe's Trump, places on other countries are totally illegal, against international law. But of course, all the sanctions that the EU, which is not even a country, places on people and, its own citizens, are beyond all illegality. And again, I'm just an ordinary person. This is just my opinion. But again, the things that have been done in Gaza, but before that, absolutely everything, the things done in Yugoslavia or Libya or Syria or Afghanistan or Iraq or Korea or Vietnam, you name it, now in Iran, these are all illegal. And of course in Ukraine as well, by the Nazis in Ukraine, of course. The amount of illegality, not just coups, assassinations, wars without casus belli, not only everything, carpet bombing, genocide, you name it. They are totally underreported in the Western world, absolutely and totally. So, of course, the ordinary people, as I said in my previous video, I think the fact that most Western people do not really understand the level of criminality or of their governments and, whatever things their governments come up with, whatever, World Bank, WEF, NATO, the EU, all of these things, they are not being informed at all, which of course means that we don't have, as I've said, we do not have an actual democracy in most of the Western world, where we are supposed to have a representative democracy, which means that you have to have electorate that is well informed so that it can make an informed decision on the ballot boxes. And since it's totally uninformed, it cannot make an informed decision on the ballot boxes. So representative democracy does not work. So we do not have a democracy in the Western world. But I digress. So not only is international law in no way happening in the Western world, or or followed at any point by the Western world, but the crimes are much worse. The infringements of the law are just orders of magnitude greater than an ordinary Western citizen has any idea of. And the law is continually mistreated. When somebody that the elite, the you can call it the Epstein ball of vampires, or international oligarchy and their minions throughout the Western world, if they do not like someone, suddenly they discover the international law, which these other people are supposed to be, these people they don't like are supposed to be breaking. And in all of them things that they do themselves or their minions do, the law completely disappears. So why am I saying all these things? Hopefully to many an intelligent person, this is completely obvious that we do not have law, we do not have justice in the Western world, and in most of the world, as long as the United States pretty much tells everybody what's to be. But why I actually made this rant, what I actually want to say is that I'm not satisfied with that. I think we should have justice and laws that bring about justice. I guess the first thing to say is that it is time to, rework the United Nations. The headquarters the hell away from the United States, and total reorganization. And again, create an instance that actually works. That, I guess, is the first one. But when it comes to law, and at this point it doesn't matter where you are, whether you are in Finland, whether you are in Sweden, or in Australia, or in Ecuador, or in Great Britain, or in the United States, or in Germany, or in France, or in Italy, wherever. I see red. And now we come to these things that I said earlier, that I see red when someone says that I'm not a lawyer and I can't really say. I don't think that's I don't like that. I really don't. Since laws are something that are supposed to be for all of us, to protect us, to help us, to create our societies, they are supposed to be things that we ordinary people understand and can stand behind of. I do not agree with the idea that only a lawyer can say what really is, and that only a lawyer or a judge can talk about laws and tell whether they're right or not, whether they're legal or not. I do not agree with this. There's, to my mind, and I'm so sorry, I pretty much would like to do the same with doctors, the other profession, you know, that all in a cliche world, every parent wants their child to be either a doctor or a lawyer. I don't like the fact that you have that one a profession is better paid than some other just as important profession. Let's say a cleaner or a plumber or a garbage truck driver. I don't personally, I am part of that bunch that does not see why one profession is any more important than another, and why anyone should make loads more. Company executives, shareholders, investors, venture capitalists. Why one profession should be more important than other and make more than other. But anyway, I digress again. I do not believe in any of this. I do not believe in somebody being extremely well paid, much better pay than most other people, having their own jargon and culture that ordinary people cannot understand, even though both things actually, health and justice, are way too important for us all, for all of us not have the possibility to understand them and agree with them. So this, you might say, hoity-toity. I do not agree with this. And I guess, again, it comes from, it's the whole idea. It must have something to do with, you know, actual aristocratic echoes in human nature. But this time we are in law. There's no question about it. To my mind, laws will have to be, again, could one say, rewritten, done again. Again, law has to be done again. In not just international law, but most other law. I personally, I have a feeling that the jury system, which we do not have in Finland, for example, might be a better system. You could have, again, some sort of a democratic voting from, you know, from actual, you know, people of a nation actually making their laws, you know, setting precedents, not courts, but actual nations. I don't know. Of course, what you cannot have, you know, when I say that perhaps jury system, you cannot have, oh, come on. What are these military things that they do when they have the seal indictment in the United States, always in that same state? Anyway, that's, of course, that has nothing to do with jury stuff. That is, of course, should be illegal beyond any question. It's a horrible, again, totally, I don't know, totalitarian thing to have. I'm sorry that I can't remember the name of it. I should, but that's the problem of ranting. If you have nothing written down, you cannot remember everything. I'd love to remember it. Anyway, and then laws themselves, they have to be written in, you know, not in a jargon, not in a, you know, absolutely, not in a language only understood by university people or something. They have to be written in plain language, and they have to be clear, so that there is no wiggle room. And of course the system has to be. It has to be clearly said that there is no wiggle room. The law so far is only the thing that is written down, and the rest of it has to be, again, in my mind, perhaps created by the people. As things happen, and actually there's just scientific advancement and technological advancement, and things happen that you cannot possibly have had a reality like that when a law was written, and so on. And I cannot see, by no means can I see, that some stuffy old guys and gals in not in Finland but in many other places in robes can just create law when the world advances. I wouldn't dream of agreeing with that. And I guess, I didn't know how complicated this would become, and how long it would take, and so on. But I feel that I have said, rather surprisingly, I feel that I have actually said what I wanted to say. That, again, it's just me, my personal opinion. Moi. I do not agree with the law or the ways of law and justice that we have, at least in the Western world. To me, we do not have justice, and our laws, our systems of justice, our way of justice work. I don't think they do. I personally, and I know what a dangerous thing it is for anyone to say that they want law to be done again. But again, I have no, actually, again, in my opinion, it should be again done by ordinary people and for ordinary people. So I can't really, I don't think this has anything to do with, let's say, fascism or any authoritarian streakiness. I'm not. I say, again, I just say as a personal opinion that I think the law and justice we have at the moment is not what it claims to be, and it's crap. I am not saying that I should make all the laws or all the rules. Nothing of the sort. I advocate, again, that we the people, ordinary people, make the law and justice. Anyway, that would be my little rant for now. Sorry if it's long again. I wish anyone who accidentally ever, even by a little bit, ever sees this, I wish you all the best. I wish you good luck. I wish good luck to us all, and forever hope that the next time I'll be ranting in English, we are in a much better place. Anyway, my most deepest, best wishes to everyone.